Good morning. Hand today is going to be ace jack offsuit. We are under the gun. This is not in my raise first in range, especially under the gun. So I folded it. We get a mid position player, open raises to 2.2, big blind calls. 2.2 seems like an odd sizing. This is probably his standard opening size, just slightly more than the one big blind, min raise. Can we put a whole lot of faith that this is telling us the strength of the hands? Not really. This could be like a tournament player, and that's why he's raising that size. But in any case, his VPIP in mid position 16%. His overall VPIP is 22. Pre-flop raise overall is 18. Mid position 13 with a 27% raise first in. So he's raised 4 out of 15 hands. I'm going to say it's probably had hands on those times. So he's running better than what is expected. I don't think I would go up to 25% of hands for a raise first in this spot. I think I'm looking at about 15% based on all of his other stats around here. Button does seem like he will raise if folded around to him. Same thing with small blind, so he does seem to apply steals. Probably is aware of position. So what I did was kind of put together a range that looks something like this. Unfortunately, when we look at the notes, we don't really have any notes on him, despite having over 100 hands. We just have seen hands that he's called from the blinds with. So I think this is pretty decent. We could add in these small pocket pairs to his range and kind of get rid of like the king 9. That could work. Or we can keep the king 9, queen 9 in his raise first in stat. And keep it down 15. I think I'm going to do this until we see that he is raising first in with like 2s, 3s, 4s, and so forth. This blind's playing 12-18, looks like a tight player. We've got a lot of hands on him. We do have called small blinds, 2.5, big blind, raise first in with jack 9 when he was in the big blind. And he just basically checked it down. I think we reviewed this hand against him. His 3-bet range, we have ace queen off, and then called 2 bets from blind. So it looks like we've got our Broadway hands and we have our pocket pairs. So for this player, I did Broadway pocket pairs, and then I added in like jack 9, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 7 to those range because we do have the jack 9. We saw that when he was in the big blind. I think maybe he would call that in this spot. What about 3-bet range? Well, we know he's 3-bet with ace queen off, so I assume it's going to be ace queen plus, and then jacks plus is what I'm going with. His overall 3-bets 4%. So I think these are decent ranges. So we see a board of ace 10 7 with 2 clubs, and this player leads. The pot is 4.9 big blinds. He leads for 3.5, so he leads for like 75% maybe. And this isn't the first time, so we have 1 out of 12 donk flop. So this is number 2. And the question is, what do people normally donk in this spot with? Normally, it's going to be like a top pair weak kicker. I think this is a decent board to see a donk flop. I'm not saying it. I'm not advocating leading. Usually, it's checking. Since you didn't 3-bet, you are missing these premium hands. You're missing basically trip aces. You're missing ace king. You're missing ace queen. So there's really no good reason to try to bet and represent those hands. If you bet, ace queen's going to call you. Ace king's going to call you, and perhaps they're betting with the idea that if they get 3-bet, they're just going to fold. I guess that's a possibility, but why not just check call and see the turn? Maybe you improve. So I don't think straights, or I don't think sets. I don't think 2-pair leads. I think those are going to be check raises. The possibility of ace jack I'm going to set that at 50%. Because I do think Ace Jack is one of those where the kicker's not super strong. It's not queen or a king. So he may be betting to just kind of gauge where he's at. And then everything else is like all the other ace nine weaker, but definitely in his range. Um, I don't think he has any of these other hands. It's really just going to be the aces. And I guess we could add in some percentages. I guess if he's a thinking player, he could lead with two pair. Um, but that means you have an ace, you block an ace. Yeah, I guess we'll do like a third, 33% chance that he would do that. I really do think two pair and sets are going to be check raises. I just think that's right. We're going to take that out. We're going to be this is a top pair hand. If he had like jacks queens, and I guess I could add in jacks and say just to kind of keep it there and say that's also a hand that I think somebody might donk with, just to see what's going to happen. And if he gets called, he's probably going to be done with the hand. So I think jacks applies to it. And I think that's good, possibly middle pair as well. All right, so we're going to keep that. Flush draws, that's, I think all of the draws would be check call hand. And we added the jacks back in just for, actually, no, I took that out initially. I think jacks are going to be 3-bet, so it'll be top pair or that middle pair hand. So player in position calls. I think this player should be raising, should be attacking. I think he should be raising even with his top pair hands. Ace king, ace queen. I think you can argue to call with those hands, with the weaker kicker hands. I think you're raising with a flush draw. I think you're raising with a straight draw because you're balancing against your premium hands. And then you're probably also going to be raising, let's see here, you're going to probably be raising some other backdoor, like backdoor gut strat. Like Jack 9 could be a good one, like a Queen 9, just to kind of balance it out. So he just called, and I think then the calls would include some of these, like King, Queen, Jacks, probably the middle pair as well. Eights and nines, I think, could potentially call, just to kind of see what improves. I think bottom pair sevens, eights call. Fives and sixes probably just fold. I think a lot of players here probably would just call, even though I argue that we probably need to be raising these flush draws and open enders to kind of protect the rest of the hands that we're going to be raising. We will need some calls. We can't just call with junk. There are no draws. So yeah, I think maybe we raise with gut shots. I think possibly gut shot would be a pretty good one to raise. So we'll keep the flush draws. What we're going to do is scale this back and just to account for the possibility that he would be raising with some of those. So we'll say 67% raises, and we'll do this as well, 67% or 66% raises as a call. I don't think he's calling that. So I think we'll just keep those ranges. 3 hearts. And again, just gonna make a note that this is we're basing our reads. So I'm not trying to do what I think we should be doing. I'm trying to build these ranges based on what I think the players would typically do, because that's our focus. All right. So 3 hearts comes out. Villain checks, and that is 100% telling at this point. So it's not 2 pair. Definitely not 2 pair. Top pair is definitely still in there. I think he's betting just to see where he's at. He's giving up, in essence. So the middle pairs fits, the top pair with a weaker kicker fits, all of that fits. fits his range. And again, if he raises and he raises with junk, it's gonna be hard for this guy to call. And that's a lot of your semi bluffs. You're gonna pick up pots at that point. So villain 2 checks behind, and I think that's kind of a mistake. Not just a raise, but I think it's a mistake. I think he should be attacking with 2 pair. I think top pair hands. I think you get some value by betting. I think you bet with those hands with ace jack, ace 9. You can sometimes bet, sometimes check with those. So we're gonna put those back at those. But yeah, I'm trying to. After what I just said, I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of thinking maybe we bet with these to try to get folds, to fold out the better aces. I think that's what we're doing, but we're looking at what is villain going to do. Would he bet these hands? Yeah, I'm going to say ace jack's probably a bet. The rest of these are probably just checks. And I'm sure he's going to be checking the rest of these. He's probably not going to be overly aggressive. And we don't have a huge number here to where we can see his float bets. So yeah, he had it. I think he's going to be just checking behind. He's probably... I think he would bet 2 pair. I think he would bet that ace jack hand, but probably doesn't bet everything else. He's probably happy to get to a showdown with kings or queens or jacks or something like that when he should be attacking. All right, king of diamonds comes out. Villain 6 checks. So at this point, again, I think 2 pair is betting. I really do. Top pair is going to be a check. Weak pair is going to be a check. Possibly a check call now, since the turn was checked through. Now it's going to be more likely that he will call a bet with his ace weak kicker. So I don't think you're going to see. I don't think you're typically going to be attacking at that point. Your attack point was on the turn. So what does villain have? It is entirely possible that he has a straight. Let's see here. He's basically betting the pot. Yeah, I sometimes see players bet pot when they want to fold. So bet sizing is characteristic of what they have. But in this case, I think he could. I think I would do this with both a solid hand, or actually, I'd probably go over. So at 12, I would probably go up to like 18 to 20 with like a straight. I'd probably do that with a set. I'd do that with a straight, and then probably also like something that I missed completely. I'd make it painful for him to call with an ace weak kicker. But what do villains do here? I think he's probably being honest on the strength of his hand. So probably a set, probably a 2 pair. I don't think he's really doing it with any of the weaker, not with that sizing. So we're going to go with sets 2 pair, 2 pair plus basically. And villain 6 calls. He's obviously not afraid. So what we're going to do is, I'm actually going to take out the ace weak kicker and say it's ace jack, ace 9, ace 8. Probably the stronger aces, unless he decides that he has top pair and he's going to call no matter what, and that is entirely a possibility too. So actually, before we see the hands, let's check his river. We'll call bet 2 out of 7. Saw river 19 out of 28. So possibly he could call with any like top pair hand. All right, so villain 9 shows 8-9. That was a bluff, and he had that. Did he have that? No, he didn't. He did. Well, yeah. I mean, 8-9 was in his range here with nothing, so he did bluff that. That's good to see. And then he had the ace jack. So villain 2 was rather interesting bet there. I think he would have been much better off had he raised. Um, he could have raised the flop or attack at the turn. Um, and if you attack the turn, then he's gonna have to bet the river, and that would be part of his bluffing range. So let's see here. He called hijacks 2.2 RFI in big blind with ace jack diamonds. He is out of position. He bet, we'll say 75%. Check, check. Oh, check. And check call 100%. And his board is ace of clubs, 10 of diamonds, 7 of clubs, 3 of hearts, king of diamonds. All right. This guy was interesting. And that was his play. So he RFI 2.2 big blind in hijack with 9-8 of spades. He is in position. He called 75%. Check. Bet 100%. All right. So, yeah, overall, I don't mind his bet at all on that river. He's betting it to as a bluff. It's going to be balanced against the 2-pair plus that he's probably doing the same thing with. He just called. I think he's at the top end of it, one of the top ends of his calling range. It's going to be hard for him to call with like ace 2, ace 4, ace 5. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to give him props for making that bet. I do think though that he could have attacked on the turn. You attack the turn and then you bet again. So I think check calling with like ace queen, ace jack is okay. Even with like ace king, I don't think you're going to necessarily raise flop with ace king. So you definitely could have ace king in your range. And I think just ace x, you're going to probably call that bet as well. So I did check this out on GTO. So I built it up. I left before I knew there was a bet. So I just left it in instead of doing the 100% check. So we are here, and you can see that GTO says, hey, you should be checking. You should be checking, most of the time here. And if he checks, then the in position player should be betting. And it's no big surprise. I'm not surprised by it because we already talked about how big blind, since he didn't 3-bet, he's not going to have aces in his range. He's not going to have that ace king. He's not going to have the ace queen. So if you're not going to have those hands in your range, then it's really, you can't represent a whole lot. You can't represent super strength. And that's kind of a reason why we're going to be favoring some of the bets. So the C bets, you're looking at 63%. You are aware that the blind will have the ace x hands, so you're looking at sets 2-pair. You're looking at betting top pair mostly. Most for value, and then the smaller ones will be checks. You're betting your flush draws, your open enders, you're betting some gut shots as well, just all to kind of get you at some of these percentages that you need. If anything, 60% might be a little low. I might have worked it out to be closer to like 70%, 75%. But who knows? But he would have bet, and then you get a call from villain with like all of his ace x hands and so forth. So if he calls, then I think you're probably checking behind with your aces, because you'd expect big blind to be checking. You'd be checking behind with those weaker kickers. You'd still be betting with your good top pair good kickers. You're going for value. You're kind of narrowing the ranges down to ace x hands along with some draws. So you're going for some value. Again, you're including, you have to include some of your flush draws in this case as bets as balance, but you can't include all of them because I think you're going to have way too many draws. So you'll have to be a little bit more judicious on which flush draws you're betting. which ones you're going to leave. So it's like the middle pair, the 10x, you do have some value. You don't want to bet, get raised, and have to fold when you have flush draw and a middle pair. But you can continue betting king queen because right now you don't have a pair, and it would be a great situation if villain folds his ace 6, ace 7 hand. Not his ace 7, that's two pair, but if he would fold his ace 8, ace 6 hand. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back here. We're going to go back to the flop. Because we built this guy's donk range. So I am going to give him full, since he did have that ace jack, we're going to give him full ace jack range along with these middle pair ranges. Okay. And we are going to edit the tree. So that's his range going into the flop. We're going to build our tree. Build new tree. Okay. We're going to import the tree. All right. And now we're going to take out the check, but we are going to bet that was 3.7. Was that 3.7? Yeah, close to 75%. So we are going to add that. We don't want to check, we want a bet. Accept changes. And I'm curious to see how GTO says to play this guy's ranges. So we're gonna run the solver and we'll be back. All right, so we set up 100%. He's betting. Those are the hands that he's betting with, and you can see that villain should be 3-betting a lot. It's really just 3-bet or fold, no calls, and that's, I guess I'm not too surprised with this. We did set up some calls. We were talking about doing some calls and calling to defend it, but GTO is basically telling us we should be aggressive. We know villain doesn't have aces. We know he doesn't have ace king, ace queen. So they want us to be aggressive in this spot. So, I mean, that's interesting. There is actually 0 call percent here, which is interesting. So let's just say he calls and then villain checks 100%. And then it's saying villain, this guy should be checking behind king of diamonds. So let's say he checks 100% and then it's 50-50. And you can see the kind of the bet range here is sets and 2-pair. I mean, sets 2-pair, no hand, weak pair. Just kind of, I think those are just standard. So what we're going to have to do is modify this guy's calling range to. So we kind of assumed he would raise some of those. All right, so we are going to get that range. We're going to adjust it. We're going to rebuild our tree. We're going to edit it. Import tree, confirm. We're going to delete those. We're going to add our action, 75%. Accept the changes. We're going to run our solver and we'll be back. All right, so I stopped it early because I thought about it while it was running and I messed up. So since we have the range, we set up his calling range on the flop. We're interested in the turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify our starting conditions here. So we've got 11.9. Our effective stacks is 113. We are going to say we're going to default setting is we're going to leave at 50%. Build a new tree. Then we're going to import the tree and check it out. So we are going to check. We are going to check. And now that's going to get us to the turn. That's going to get us to the turn. And that is what we're going to be interested in. So we're going to run the solver on the corrected scenario and be back. All right, so we've got it again. We need this entire range to get to our turn, and we are here with our ranges. So we assumed villain was betting, so villain is supposed to be continuing to bet at about 20%. Sometimes betting with ace jack, ace 8, 2 pair now that he's connected, some draws. I think probably the worst thing for him is some of the checks, but GTO allows it. So he does check, and now now our hijack players betting about 47%. So he had 8-9. I talked about this is kind of a good spot to go ahead and bet and be aggressive with it. Especially you have open ender. That's going to help balance your like ace jack hands. It's going to balance 2 pair hands that you have. So you could have ace 3. Assumption is that he would have raised his ace 10, ace 7 trips and so forth. So he could be raising that, but you can see that once he checks behind, you kind of eliminate your ace jack, ace 9, ace 8. You kind of expect him to attack those. Because you kind of assume at that point you're probably getting called by some of the weaker aces, and you're getting called by the draws. So you want to get some value with this ace jack, ace 9, ace 8. If you just check behind and then try to bet on the river with those types of hands, the draws, they missed, they're going to fold. So now is the time to kind of get your value. So villain does check behind, so he does have his actual hand 8-9, and then here we get a check again, and villain's still kind of betting, about 50% of the time. Now he's betting the lower aces. You're hoping maybe that higher aces will fold, maybe. But again, you've kind of lost them because you should have been betting those. But you can see that he does have some bluffs in his range, and of course this was only half pot bet. If we did a pot size bet here, it's going to be, you're going to have more checks in the top pair range. You're going to keep your bets on the sets, and you're going to have the weaker hands showing up as balance. So maybe not as frequent of a bluff in that case. So, all right. So hopefully we've learned some stuff here. I've numerous hands. I've read through these donks. Normally, always, especially at list level at the micro stakes, the donks almost always mean something weak, nothing overly strong. And if you assume that that's the case, the 1 or 2 times that you, in like 1,000 times that you see it, actually we'll change it. 1 or 2 times in like the 250 to 500 hands that you see it, if you lose at those, that's you chalk it up. You mark that player as being tricky. Most of the time, though, it's weak. So hopefully we enjoyed the hand. We talked about different ideas, and hopefully you are doing the same thing with your hands to get better. If you like this hand, look tomorrow for another.